We're talking hardball, the bull and the better. Talking hardball, part of Betting Weekly. Handicappers, they're all in the know. Pick some winners and then we say let's go. So come on, it's time to watch the show. We're talking hardball. Ken Griffey's grotesquely swollen jaw. We're talking hardball. Over under on the hot.
We are live on the latest edition of Betting Weekly Hardball, part of the Betting Weekly Studios and Bet Rivers, along with Doug Kezirian. I'm Adam the Bull, and Doug, a lot of wild games in Major League Baseball last night. Walk-offs all over the place. I don't know how everybody did with their bets last night, but it was certainly a fun night to watch baseball, wasn't it?
That's the beauty of the sport, right? It's a long season. We have these memorable moments, and it's really just the high leverage situations are the terms we often get. And that's the beauty of betting on this sport is you're never out of it because there's no clock unless you count the pitch clock. But there's 3 outs you got to get. You get comebacks galore, and you're always alive. And that's also the beauty of in-game wagering, where you can sort of abort a certain situation or a certain spot and hedge or take guaranteed profits, things like that. But baseball's funny like that, and it can. And I always joke that betting on baseball takes years off your life because it could be just totally exhausting. But then again, betting on anything can take years off your life, as we've seen in the NBA this week, or this past couple of weeks. But no, it's really exciting. It's the drama, and on any given night, you get the Rockies all of a sudden win a couple games and things like that. So it's that's the beauty of the baseball.
And it's a loaded docket tonight. We've got 17 games because there's 2 doubleheaders. Two of those the first game of the 2 doubleheaders have both started. The Twins lead the Orioles 4-3 in the bottom of the 6th, first game of the doubleheader there. The Twins have won 8 in a row. The Cardinals and Phillies, Cardinals who have won 9 in a row, that game is scoreless in the bottom of the 4th. Brewers and Guardians are not playing a doubleheader. It's a getaway day for Milwaukee. That game's 1-1 in the bottom of the 3rd. But even though the Twins and Orioles and the Cardinals and Phillies are both underway, Doug, we do want to get to those teams. I just mentioned, let's start with the Cardinals and Phillies. The Cardinals have won 9 straight. Again, that game is scoreless in the bottom of the 4th. The pitching matchup for the second game is the pitching matchup we had talked about yesterday. They're going in the 6:15 game, Sonny Gray and Aaron Nola. And obviously the Cardinals have this winning streak going in. But what happens in the first game can definitely influence your bet in the second game of a doubleheader, right?
For sure. And as a bettor, we can even jump in. We talked about it yesterday, wanting to see Valdez for the Astros. And just, he's been kind of feast or famine, hot or cold a lot of the season. So sometimes you want to see a couple opportunities. But right now, Phillies do have a runner on third, 2 outs in the bottom of the 4th. So they could take a lead. That would be significant for sure. And that's why the Phillies are nearly 2-1 favorites. They're minus $1.95 at Bet Rivers right now. And the over/under 4.5. That's the the bullpens get involved in a tight game.
Yeah.
And I don't see a play there, but the Cardinals bats have been getting it done. You mentioned the win streak right now. That's something that is certainly on top of mind because the breaks are going their way. So they've won 9 straight. Could the Phillies strand a runner? Absolutely. If you like the dog, maybe you grab the plus 140. Things along those lines because you believe in the Cardinals to get out of that jam, but they have gotten out of that jam.
Yeah.
So they're heading to the 5th now, and that's why that number was around 295 when he was on third, but now we're scoreless through 4, and now it's back to $1.95 in favor of the Phillies. So nothing jumping out to me, but you're right. Bullpen used in games 1 certainly affects games 2 for both of these double headers and things along those lines. It's also just a gut feel. Yesterday, I mentioned listening to the broadcast, the former player, the analyst, the color guy, that certainly can shed some light. They'll relay conversations they had as well from talking to the skipper or someone before the game. So you get a little insight. And obviously there's beat writers you can track on Twitter and everything along those lines. So there's information out there, there's clues, there's breadcrumbing, if you will. But in general, yeah, but I don't think there's a overarching steadfast rule where you should trust something over, just like, oh, if this team wins game one, then the other team's going to win game two.
Right.
You can't make those blanket statements. Not that you were insinuating that, but I just want to
No.
remind our audience that that is something you need to be careful of, kind of just assuming so.
Yeah, I think a lot of the general I think thought out there is that well the team that wins the first game usually loses the second game. That's actually not true. It's really kind of 50-50. I don't think yeah, obviously there's things that can happen in the first game. Like if a team has to use their closer for a lot of
Right.
pitches, he's going to be maybe unavailable for the second game or somebody gets hurt in that first game or if a team has a you know an excellent catch. Let's look at the Orioles and Twins. Like Adley Rushman is their top catcher. He's playing the first game. Decent chance he won't play the second game. So those things can factor in. But yeah, as you say, you don't want to just say, "Oh, I'm going to bet on whoever loses this game, no matter what." That's kind of a silly way to look at it.
I would agree. Silly's the right term.
Speaking of the Orioles and the Twins, we talked about the Cardinals have won 9 in a row. The Twins have won 8 in a row. They do have a 4-3 lead, bottom of the sixth, 1 on, 1 out for the Orioles in the bottom of the sixth. Are you thinking about anything for the second game in this doubleheader?
Not really. You got to be careful. We've talked about it. Two plays yesterday. One was a rain out. Um,
Right.
I definitely want, like you said, the closers potentially playing and using that. We have the luxury of waiting now.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I did like the first 5 over for Twins and Orioles, but um, pitchers change and then the start and then the day that you got to take a look at some day numbers just in case some guy's horrendous during the day, or in this case, if I like the overseas lights out
Hmm.
during the day. Those are things you want to keep in mind, but none of these games really got involved. I'm still Twins or pass. I like riding a hot team, and I have not assuming the Orioles will turn this around. I mean, eventually they might, but I don't want to try to catch the falling knife, as a popular cliche would say. So, um, nothing necessarily jumping out for game two either.
Speaking of hot teams, let's talk about the Red Sox and the Tigers. Tigers playing as well as anyone. Tarek Skubal on the hill for them tonight. Last night, we were talking about this right before we went on. A wild 11-10 win. Christian Campbell hits a 2-run homer for the Sox in the top of the 10th to give them a 10-8 lead. And then Javi Baez hits a 3-run walk-off in the bottom of the 10th to give the Tigers an 11-10 win. I saw we got it on our first message on the message board here, and Corey says yesterday's Detroit money line was a real sweat. Yeah, no doubt about it. If you had the Tigers on the money line, you probably thought you were going down after that Christian Campbell 2-run shot in the top of the 10th. But that's what the Tigers have been like that, and lately they have scored. I think they have 5 10 or more run games this month, which is just crazy. I mean, they're on fire offensively right now, and they're a big favorite at home against Boston tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed it. It was a high profile series a couple days ago. It was on TBS, the national television, and teams got to see some teams that they don't normally watch. I like this Tigers team, but I don't think they're necessarily dominant. And they got the nice dramatic win. Now here with Scooble, much different situation. He's the betting
Yep.
favorite, as we alluded to yesterday, for Cy Young. And then Hunter
Mm-hmm.
Robbins, I like. He's been a guy that's been interesting. He gets out of jams, which I like a lot as well. And he's on the road here, which I think is beneficial because I think just pitching at Fenway's tough, especially for a young guy. He got touched up by the Twins at home, but I really like he gets out of jams. And what do I mean by that? He's just how do I implement that? Well, I'm going to go with a little nerfy here. Minus a $1.37 at Bet Rivers. What do I mean by nerfy? It's no runs first inning, and that's under a half run. So no score in the first inning. And if you look at each pitcher or the other team's offense to score in the first, it's like minus 400 on the no for Boston because Tarek Skubal's on the bump for Detroit. And then it's like minus 3 something or 280 for for the Detroit
Mm-hmm.
offense. So I'd rather combine them and do a combined first innings under -148. And it obviously comes down to the Detroit lineup, but Dobbins can get through this. And I think he's only given up one run. He's only been given up at least a run in a first inning, one start. That was St. Louis. That was his first start this year at Fenway. We know the Cardinals bats have woken up, but I just think he can handle this. And I love Scooble. He also gets out of jams too. So I think there's some little bit of an edge here at minus a buck 48. It's a little juicier than you like for a Nerfy, but I'm okay with that.
By the way, I could probably give you a million guesses. Not just you. I wouldn't have known this, obviously. Anybody, there's not a person in America except for these two guys that would know that there are two members of the active Red Sox roster that have homered against Tarek Skubal in their careers. Two guys have one homer against them. If you had Abraham Toro and Rob Refsnyder on your bingo card of home runs off Tarek Skubal, good luck to you because you're smarter than everybody else. That's the weird thing about baseball. You could ask a lot of great pitchers, like, who's the toughest hitter you ever faced? And yeah, plenty of guys will say Bonds or Tony Gwynn or whatever. But every once in a while, you'll see a guy who'll say, yeah, there was some random dude. He used to kill me all the time. I'm not saying these two guys have, but oddly enough, those two guys have hit home runs off Skubal. Shocking.
Yeah, and a guy like Greg Maddux would always say Bonito Santiago because he would
Yeah.
hit a pitch at his eyes. And so Maddux carved up guys who were predictable, but it's the unpredictable guys that you don't know what they're going to swing at. So Maddux could never set a guy up or things like that. And that would always wreak havoc, so to speak. So I always like that sort of fun fact, if you will, like the erratic batters would be the most difficult to sort of set up and sequence in an at bat. But yeah, I did not have those two on my bingo card.
No, definitely not. Why would you? There is Red Sox. Some of the hitters have had a decent amount of success against him. Bregman has, but that could be misleading too because they may have had that success more before Skubal became what he is now. Like since last year, he was a good pitcher when he first came up, but since the beginning of last year, he's super elite now. He's a different pitcher. So the stats against him before that kind of hold very little value to me.
Well said. It's all about the situation and what form he's in. And
Yeah.
Scooble, obviously, much different pitcher the last year and change than he was prior to that. But sometimes you just have a guy's number, so it is part of the equation. But yeah, it all depends how they are at when you faced them.
Yeah. All right. Let's move it on to the next game here. The Yankees and Mariners. We talked about this game yesterday. It was an exciting one yesterday, and they're back at it today. On paper, the pitching matchup certainly favors the Mariners, as they will have Luis Castillo on the hill against the rookie Will Warren. But Castillo's, at this point, he's older. He's not quite the same. He's actually not as old as I thought. I was thinking he was like 35, 36. He's actually only 32. But nowadays, with steroids, we think, out of the game, 32 is getting a little old for pitchers. Although you wouldn't know that because Rich Hill just signed a minor league contract at 45 years old with the Royals. But Luis Castillo, not quite the dominant pitcher he once was. But, Doug, he's still really good.
He is, but he's unreliable. And
Yes.
this is where I just have to swear off the games. You just don't know which version you're going to get of Castillo. I want to play Seattle. I really do. I mentioned sort of the ebb and flow of the Yankees West Coast trips, and they were on a roll. I think they had won 5 of 6 and won the opener on Monday. And now they come off the loss, and you mentioned Will Warren on the bump for New York, but I just don't know which Castillo I'm going to get. The offense isn't as bad as maybe the reputation. I'm talking about the Seattle offense. For me, it's Seattle or pass. I think that's the best way to approach it. It's even money at Bet Rivers plus 100, so you can kind of avoid some juice. I just don't want to get involved with Castillo, but I'm ready to pull the trigger, or I was at least. But ultimately, cooler heads prevailed, I guess is a one way to say it.
Yeah. Again, we talked about this yesterday. If you're not you could go through all the numbers you want, right? All the analytics, everything it tells you. But a lot of it just comes down to a gut feeling. And if you're not comfortable with even what the numbers are pointing to, then you don't make the bet. That's
At
smart.
least for me, it does. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of guys have their math models and do projections and trust their numbers and don't have to think twice. They don't run it through their gut check and things like that. And I'm just not like that. That's okay. Everyone has their own sort of approach and modeling, and I don't have modeling, but others do. I lean into that. I have guys on my, our betting team, if you want to call it, who I
Yeah.
talk to and things like that. But ultimately, it's you just want to you don't want to treat every bet like, oh, this is my last bet on earth or whatever. It doesn't have to be this absolute no
Right.
brainer in your gut, but you want to be making sort of a sharp play or a smart play because you can always get involved after you. If Castillo's has bite on his pitches and everything, then get involved after the second inning. If it's 0-0, it's going to be the same price virtually.
I heard a few years back Theo Epstein. Well, it feels like Theo Epstein was one of the first guys on the forefront of analytics in baseball, and I heard him talk about. I think he was asked what he learned when he went from Boston to Chicago, and he said, "Early in my career, it was all about analytics. Like it was the numbers pay, were what I followed, and that was it." And then after he got that experience at Boston and went to Chicago, he realized that he needed to find a balance between people or gut or eyes, whatever you want to call it, and analytics. I think that's smart advice for people running baseball, football, and basketball teams, but I think it's also really smart advice for bettors. Yes, the numbers can help, no doubt. And if you follow the numbers, you'll probably do well, a good deal of the time. But ultimately, if it were that easy, if you just had to follow the numbers to win, well, there'd be no risk at all. And so you have to factor in, I think, the gut on some level. And I think people that find the balance between the two probably have the most success.
I think that's a good way to put it. But there are math guys
Yeah.
who, I mean, if you think about it, we talked about sort of the projections and the models and how that shapes the market and things like that. Well, if everyone has a model, then why isn't everyone betting the same thing? Well, the difference is people have
Right.
different models, right?
Yep.
So let's just think of like a big spreadsheet, and everyone may weight a column differently than you would. So really, we have our own sort of modeling in our own heads. We might think recent form matters much more than last year's stats, or how someone did in their last two outings, a pitcher matters way more, or how a batter's doing in his last two games. Now, somebody else might think larger sample size carries more weight. So the only difference in this example is that people are doing it on their spreadsheet versus on their own sort of gut. So for me,
Right.
it's sort of a melting pot. You just put it all in and kind of lean on experience, go with your gut, things like that. And that's one way to go about it. But there's certainly a lot of moving parts and everyone has their own preferences. And again, none of it may matter, right? It may just be one of those things where some guy has 4 home runs in a game and there's nothing you could have projected for that. It's just a crazy game, or one team has like 6 errors and there's really no way. It's just the beauty of baseball. But in the long run, the volume play, if you will, that's typically the wisest approach to be, sort of generally speaking.
Let's go to the opposite of the beauty of baseball here and talk about the Rockies. But before we do that, Bet Rivers is offering 5 MLB boosted specials today, including any Yankee player to hit a first inning home run against the Mariners. Head to the House Specials tab on the Bet Rivers app or at betrivers.com today to get in on the action. Will any Yankee, if you're betting on a Yankee to hit home run in the first inning, it's probably Aaron Judge, but he's probably got the worst odds. So maybe you take a chance on somebody else. I don't know. If you had to.
Yeah, I think Judge is the guy. For some reason, they're not pitching around him completely yet, so that's something
Yeah.
that baffles me.
Crazy.
And look, you can't do it all the time, right? There's guys on base, things like that, but he really should be sort of getting that Barry Bonds treatment. So I am still baffled a little bit in that regard. So yeah, he would be the guy I would pick. Yeah, really going on a limb there, Doug. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the guy I would pick. But that's the one you want to go to battle with too.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. All right. Let's talk about the Colorado Rockies. They lose again yesterday. They are 20 games out of first place, which is insane this early in the season. They are on pace, Doug, to not even with the White Sox broke the record last year with 40 wins. The Rockies are on pace to not even win 30. They're on pace to win 26 games on the season. I'm guessing they'll end up winning more than that, but I don't know. I was talking about potential trades, and somebody was asking me today, could the Guardians make a trade with the Rockies? I'm like, for who? Who
Right.
on earth would you want from the Rockies? The only two hitters that you might want are young players that they won't trade. But they did end their losing streak on Sunday, but now they've lost 2 in a row again. Patrick Corbin on the hill against them in Texas with the Rangers, and you like the Rangers, and you're going to bet on the run line, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The Rockies are so bad
Yeah.
that in the year 2025, I'm considering laying the run line with Patrick Corbin. But, with this, what was it, a spider bite? I mean, ever since that, he's been really
Yeah.
solid. And the Rockies are that bad. And it's also a bet against Antonio Sensatella. He's
Yeah.
been just so, he had one good start, actually two, one at Philly, which is just an outlier
Shocking.
performance.
Yeah.
And then at home to the Nats, which you don't see in Coors Field. But for the most part, he's just been rocked, man. He's not a good pitcher. He's a high volume in terms of hits, gives up a lot. There's just not a lot to like with Sensatella, and we were sleeping on it yesterday. I should have got back on the Rangers because I can't let 1 or 2 games uh, derail my confidence in their ineptitude, right?
Yeah.
So I should be on the Rangers every game, and I'm just going to be betting against the Rockies unless really I get hit over the head too many times in terms of it backfiring. But there's really no reason to think that they are not going to continue to just be basically a quadruple A baseball team, right? They're not a major league team. They're quad A and maybe even just triple A. So I think you have to go run line against them. I don't want to lay the heavy juice because if the stars align and one of their pitchers pitches well, then it's not like they're going to lose by 1 run. Now the Padres the other day did only win by 1 run,
Yeah.
but no, sorry, the Rangers did win by 1 run. I believe in game 1 or 2 of this series. Either way, I just rather do the run line. It was game 1, so on Monday. So the Rockies are
Yeah.
still losing. They did win on Sunday to end the homestand against the Padres in an emphatic fashion, but for the most part, this is a team that has scored 2 runs and 1 run in the first couple games. So, but Corbin, look, he's not going to win a Cy Young, but he's been a lot more competent this year and a lot more reliable. And so I know bettors who love to bet against him, but that's old Patrick Corbin. This is spider bite Patrick Corbin.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for he signed that huge contract. He was a disaster in Washington. And now that contract's gone and he's under the radar now. And he's on a good pitching staff in Texas. And so he's probably relaxed. And he's gone from an all-star pitcher to absolute trash for a few years. And now he's serviceable, especially against Colorado. And to back up your Antonio Sensatella hate, let me give you this. That this is crazy. Sensatella has 19 strikeouts and 8 home runs allowed. So he's only struck out 11 more batters than he's given up home runs to. I mean, that's insane.
That's pretty insane.
Oh,
well
my
said.
God. And he's given up, I think, 66 hits in 32 innings, 33 innings. I mean, he's given up almost 2 hits per inning. He's what's crazy about the Rockies, Doug, they're just the worst run organization in baseball, even more than the White Sox. Their pitching staff has basically been the same for like 5 years. These guys all are terrible, and they don't make any changes there. They run out these same guys every year.
Long gone are the days where they went and got Mike Hampton with the big contract.
Yeah, right.
And where it's like, why would you spend all that money on a pitcher at Coors Field? But it's really a poorly run organization. We know they fired Bud Black, who clearly was not the reason they are losing at a historic rate. And there's just no relief in sight. Albert Nguyen was on the show last week and just talked about how they have the worst minor league system and all this other stuff. It's just a really, really bad organization, top to bottom. And I've talked about the baseball betting market, or all betting markets are really stubborn. Like they're not going to just put minus 400 up for the Rangers in this case. So they're just not going to put ridiculous run lines and ridiculous money lines in all these games because the Rockies still are a major league team. And history of betting baseball shows you that the worst team still wins 60 games, the best team still loses 60, third of their games. So you just have to be careful with these huge money lines. But I think this is an outlier season, and we already have proof of it. And to your
Yep.
point about the pitching and your point about the hitting, we already have proof of it. So we just need to seize the opportunity as a better. And I think there's opportunities every night fading the Rockies run line. And I know it's very public, and I know it's square and blah blah blah. But honestly, I was told that when I was betting Alabama team totals in football when Saban finally had a quarterback with Tua and moving forward, and they were just lighting it up, and their team totals went over like 9 of their 11 or 12 regular season games. And it's just one of those things where you have outlier opportunities. Sorry, you have outlier situations, and that presents opportunity until the market finally corrects and comes around. So, you're sitting here and you have Draymond Green in the NBA saying the spread's 5.5. Let's shoot a three. You have all these things going against you and all these headaches, and then on the other side is on a silver platter is the Rockies. And I just think you have to go with what's on the silver platter here and continue to fade a bad team. And even if they burn you, like they burned a lot of people on Sunday,
Yeah.
and then on Monday, when they didn't cover the run line or if you bet against them,
Yeah.
I think you got to get back on the horse, and which we should have done yesterday on Tuesday, and we're doing it today.
I want to talk about another game here, and that's the Dodgers against Oakland. I have a lean, and this is a gut pick.
Okay.
I like the Athletics to. So Yoshinobu Yamamoto, coming off his only bad start of the year, is at home. The Dodgers are a massive favorite. I love throwing a few dollars on the Athletics at plus 235. I like what we've seen from this young starter, Gunnar Hoglund. He's made 2 starts since coming up to the big leagues, and he's pitched very well. I know it was against Miami, the first one, but the second one against Seattle, who's hit pretty well, and he only allowed 7 base runners in 5 1/3 and 2 runs. Yamamoto had a bad start last time out. I got a hunch he's going to have another one today before he rights the ship. I know you kind of predicted that slip from Yamamoto, and at plus 235, I kind of like the A's on the road. They've been much better on the road. 14-7 on the road are the A's.
I know a pro bettor who bet the A's yesterday. And so with Yamamoto, so what this was, and a week ago, they were traveling from Miami to Phoenix.
Yeah.
Back-to-back days. Now it was a day game and then a night game the next day, but still a long travel. And Arizona was off the previous day, and they were waiting, licking their chops, and they were just fresh. Now I don't know why Yamamoto got touched up. I mean, yes, the travel and everything, but there was regression was due. I mean, he was just incredibly lights out. His ERA is 0.90. 0 point Blutarski style prior to that outing. So he figured at least give up some runs. And obviously the Arizona offense is pretty good. You had the home team, things like that. I don't know enough of why he got touched up. I think he's going to bounce back. The question is this Oakland offense really good? I do think there's some overvalue situation going on with the Dodgers. Like the bottom half of the lineup is nothing to write home about.
That's right.
I mean, it's unfair because they have 3 MVP winners to start the top of the lineup. So, you can almost put the 27 Yankees at the bottom of the lineup and it'd be a drop off, right? So I understand that, but this is a team that's a lot more, sort of pub than we've seen, and they're alternating wins and losses. That offense has not really gotten hot like it will at some point this summer. So I do think there's some value fading the Dodgers. I think you just have to pick the right night. Last night would have been a great one. Not that because we know the result was 11-1, but it wasn't one of their big names. It wasn't Yamamoto on the bump and things like that. We talked about it a week ago when I think I was on like May against the Marlins, and the next night they had one of their randoms. So last night they had Knack going, who's not Yamamoto, and it's similar money lines, and that's the key here. You got to just it's like yes, it's the Dodgers lineup, no matter who's pitching, but I'd rather lay 270 with the Dodgers and one of their aces instead of like 230 with one of their randoms. That's my point. It's these huge numbers with some of these randoms, and I would say Knack is one of the randoms. So I would not jump on Oakland. Well, first of all, it's Oakland or pass just because it's a high price and the Dodgers aren't hitting well. But I expect Yamamoto to pitch pretty well. Now, he may not be the 0.90 guy, but he also may not be the guy who gave up 5 earned a week ago. And I am not quite ready to pull the trigger, but I would not be laying the juice. For me, it's dog or pass here.
A couple comments from the chat here. Byron and Corey. are both have some comments. Byron says, "Agree, Doug. Backing Castillo and Barrios is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." Corey says the Athletics at a big road price is tempting. Yamamoto got roughed up in his last start versus the Snakes. We talked about that a little bit. He also says the A's getting a bigger price on the road than the Rockies is insane. I know the Dodgers are a better team than the Rangers, but the Rocks are way worse than the A's. Makes no sense to me. Byron also says the Patrick Corbin effect, even though Corbin has been more than serviceable this season. Corey says, Doug, you've convinced me. I will join you on the Rangers run line. So,
boy, pressure's on.
yeah.
And one thing I'll tell you what, this under in the Phillies Cardinals game has been staring at me. It was 4.5 when we started the show.
Yeah.
And then it was 3.5. Now under's minus $1.50, but if you believe in the bullpens, and it's, I just think it's going to be one of those games where the team to score is going to win, and then the rest of the pen comes in. I don't know if it's going to be crooked number the rest of the way. So we're bottom 6.
Yep.
3.5 is it's scoreless. 3.5 is the live total. And that's, it's minus $1.13 now. So there might be a runner on or something
Trey
like that.
Turner just walked to start the bottom of the 6th with Harper and Schwarber coming up.
Yeah, I mean, they're swinging away. They're not sacrificing. They're not going to hit behind the runner like Turner to put it in play kind of stuff. But I don't know, man. Even if they go up 3-0, I could see that being the final. So I would look to the under here, but so this is also when the dam breaks. One of these lineups might get a crookedness. So yeah, it's probably the right number, but I wouldn't lay the $3.43 minus 345 either on Philly. That's a big money line right now. I'd look at Cardinals plus 1.5 minus 157. That's another play I would look at. I think if the Phillies scratch, it might just be one run here.
All right, so that game, first of a doubleheader, bottom 6, 1 on, nobody out. Top of the 5th in Cleveland, the Guardians lead the Brewers 2-1. The Brewers have 2 out, nobody on in the top of the 5th. And the other game going on right now, first of a doubleheader, Twins lead the Orioles 4-3 in the bottom of the 7th. They're threatening, but I think the Twins just got out of the inning. Yes, they did. So that game's now going to head to the top of the 8th. Yeah, top of the 8th. O'Hearn lined out to end the inning with 2 on. 4-3, that game going to the top of the 8th. So we'll keep an eye on all these games as we go here. He's thrown whoever's pitching for the Cardinals now. It's Eric Fetty's still in the game.
He's still there.
Yeah. He's seems to be losing his command a little bit now because he walked Turner and now he's 2-0 on Harper. So we'll see. One other thing I wanted to hit, and it's based on a comment here. Obviously, Corey's been big on fading the Cubs. He says, I'm looking to fade the Cubs again. I like the price on Miami, and I don't trust Tyone. Jameson Tyone has overall pitched decently, but his last start was terrible. He gave up 4 home runs, and he's an unpredictable guy. He'll have a couple of starts where he looks really sharp, and then he'll get blown up 3 or 4 starts in a row. I kind of like the over in that game. That was another wild game that was 4-2 Marlins in the 9th last night, and it ended up 5-4 Cubs on a Justin Turner walk-off. But, Ryan Weathers is pitching, and he hasn't pitched yet this year. So that'll be an interesting.
See, I would lean Cubs. I would lean Cubs here, run line, even even money line at 215. I think Tyone's fine. He's not. Look, I said the other day, like I always think it's fun. Strasburg and Machado were drafted around him. He was the number 2 pick that year. Right. And yes, he's not Strasburg and things like that. But would you really want to bet the Marlins on the road and they're 5-14 away from home? They're nothing special in that lineup. And Weathers making his first start in a Cubs lineup that you and I have discussed, I think is maybe not going to be the best in baseball at the end of the season, but when all is said and done, they're still going to be decent. I think this is a good spot to back the Cubs. The reason I did not get involved is it's really hard to sweep and law of averages. I just didn't want to have to get involved with a team that was going for they won the first 2 games of the series. So I was just like, things get bouncing right. Cubs, and they've won some nail biters, if you will. So that's what ultimately got me off of it as they go for the sweep. But that was my concern, so to speak. And I guess and they got the White Sox on deck. So it's a long homestand. I don't know. It just wasn't a great spot, right? We talked situational handicapping and spot playing. And I think it's more pronounced in other sports, like in the NBA playoffs, teams down 2-0, things like that. But it just wasn't the best spot for the Cubbies.
Sal Frelick just hit a solo home run for the Brewers to tie that game at 2. Hit it off at Gavin Williams, so it's 2-2 going to the bottom of the 5th. And the Phillies now have first and second, nobody out. Back-to-back walks to Trey Turner and Bryce Harper, and now it's 2-0 to Schwarber. Fetty's putting himself in a big spot here. Schwarber, big-time power. He's walked 2 in a row, and now is 2-0. He seems to have completely lost his command this inning.
Right. So it's 3-0. Turner stole second, and then they
Yeah.
walked Harper. Now, this is really important. I think so. If this were a playoff game, he'd be
Yeah.
pulled, right?
Oh, yeah,
But
100%.
it's not. But the manager wants to earn credibility with
Yeah.
his guys and trust his guys to get out of it. They're playing the long game. They're playing sort of the macro approach with the clubhouse.
Yeah.
So this is a situation. If you're betting and you think he's way more likely to stay in the game, especially early in the season than maybe like August or September. So that's a situation where he's going to have a longer leash. And if you're watching this game and the pitches are a little erratic, now granted, there's a delay. So maybe you got to bet this during a pitching mound visit because there's like a 30-second or a minute delay, depending on the platform you're watching. But these are things to keep in mind. He's not going to get pulled. He's going to get a chance to pitch to Schwarber here.
Yeah, he did. He actually got Schwarber to pop out. That was clutch. It was a 2-1 pitch to Schwarber. Got an infield pop-up. And one other reason why he's probably keeping him in too, Doug, is that it's a doubleheader, and you're trying to keep the bullpen, fresh here. So first and second, 1 out now. Castellanos at the plate, the lefty Kepler on deck. So we'll
Fetty's earned the right. I mean, he's earned that right. Look, just because you pitch around Turner and Harper, that's fine. He's 86 pitches, so he's close to getting pulled. But he got out of it with Schwarber, who's feast or famine kind of hitter.
Yeah.
So if you just need one mistake pitch, and then obviously now a ground ball gets you out of the inning.
Doug, let's we'll give one final check of the scores before we go. But of course, following this show in about 24 minutes from now, it's Betting Weekly Fast Break. Got 2 big games on the docket tonight. Tell us what's happening on that show today.
Yeah, it's some great basketball last night. Incredible comeback from Indiana. We'll touch on the Pacers, who have punched their ticket to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Celtics tonight are 1 loss away from being eliminated. So the Knicks, can they get it done on the road? They are underdogs in Boston, even without Jason Tatum, even without a healthy Porzingis. But Hauser's coming back, so we'll break down that line. That bet I talked about, that over/under, did get there. So that was my big play of the postseason. That was an OKC Denver game last night. And in terms of the other Western Conference, of the Warriors, double-digit dogs in Minnesota, 3-1. They're Minnesota's a win away from going back to the conference finals, and a lot of good prop betting action too, especially with Boston and Tatum being out. There's a domino effect to his absence, and where can we find value? So we'll get into all that. Top of the hour, Chris Massero is going to join us, a professional bettor who's based in San Diego, but he comes to Las Vegas a lot. So we'll have a good conversation surrounding that. And he's a Boston native, so we'll get his opinion on the Celtics tonight as well.
All right, and Doug's picks today for baseball: a Nerfy in the Red Sox-Tigers game, and the Rangers minus 1.5 against the Rockies.
Yeah, it's pretty cut and dry with the Rockies fading them, and even with Patrick Corbin, who's been solid, and I think you mentioned the contract, that's something of note. And you're only $1.12 with the run line, as opposed to like Sunday when the Padres were like minus 1.5, minus 190 or something absurd. Maybe it was even in the $2 range. So minus 1.5, minus 112. You're playing with fire a little bit, but that's what happens with point spreads and things like that. And the Nerfy overnight, I liked it at $1.37. The market's headed that way at $1.48. And I thought it was a smart play in that regard. So I still like, a Scooble involved. Obviously, that's always a nice thing to back. But keeping an eye on those live games, like I said, the over under of in this Cardinals Phillies game, 3.5. Man, that under is just screaming my name. But we'll see if Fetty can get out of the jam.
Yeah, he's up to 92 pitches. It's 2 on, 1 out, and a 2-2 count to Castellanos. He's fouled off a couple of pitches, so we'll see what happens here. The other games, one last quick check. Minnesota trying to extend their winning streak to 9. Now up 4-3 going to the bottom of the 8th, and they go to the top of the 6th in Cleveland. The Brewers and the Guardians are tied at 2. Arizona, San Francisco will start in about an hour, and Yankees, Mariners will start at 4:10 if you're looking for other afternoon action today. Doug, great stuff as always. A lot of fun. I may or may not be with you tomorrow. We've got somebody on jury duty that may. What's the latest on the jury duty?
Yeah, well, I haven't quite gone to the bullpen phone in my house yet, so I'm waiting for the call here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we'll have the bullpen. We'll send the the baseball helmet shaped car for you
Yeah.
if we have to, the old school style. But we appreciate you on standby, and that's just the beauty of live television,
Yeah.
or of life getting in the way of work, right? That's sort of what happens. But we'll have a good show tomorrow, one way or another. And it's a brand new show, obviously, your Betting Weekly Hardball, part of the Bet Rivers Network, but also top of the hour, Betting Weekly Fast Break. You mentioned it. We're going to break down 2 more playoff games tonight and look ahead to some futures, too, with this chaos that's been going down in the playoffs with top seeds going down or on the verge of going down. There's opportunity maybe in the futures market as well. So we'll just discuss and digest all of that.
And make sure you check out, folks, the Bet Rivers newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter at bettingweeklystudios.com for weekly betting tips and Betting Weekly Insider, in addition to everything provided on these shows. So make sure you sign up again for the newsletter at bettingweeklystudios.com. Fetty got Castellanos to pop up. So first and second, nobody outs turned to first and second, 2 outs. He is now facing a lefty in Kepler. You wonder if they go to the pen. I don't know if they have a lefty warming up or not. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals go to a left-hander here with Fetty at 93 pitches to face Kepler. But he did a good job getting 2 good hitters. And they are going to the lefty. Steven Matz, who's been a starter for much of his career, is coming in with 2 on, 2 out to face the lefty Kepler. All right. Thanks to Z and Alex for producing today. We'll talk to you next time on Betting Weekly Hardball.